Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Feeling and Healing podcast. Today, I am so happy to welcome Katie. She is an ICF certified professional and executive coach, and she works with leaders to help them and their organizations navigate change with clarity, confidence, and compassion. So, welcome, Katie. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, so I know we've talked on other conversations, and you mentioned to me your trauma-informed leadership approach and how you work with leaders with their trauma to have that impact their, performance and things at work. So I'm just curious, could you just explain that a little bit for those of people that aren't, aware of it? And I'm super interested in it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll back up a little bit
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just sort of explain like how I even got into this because I was traumatized in the workplace. And part of that was from my direct boss, but a big part of it was how the leadership, the senior leadership handled the
Mm,
situation. And that's really what I try to help organizations and leaders understand is that how you handle sensitive issues and with your employees and just handle employee relations and honestly just managing people and talking to people, you do have a big you can have a big impact on their mental health for the good and the bad. And
absolutely.
so, one thing that I really focus on with leaders is just understanding what trauma is, what are trauma responses, how can they show up in the workplace, and really trying to get leaders to stop labeling behaviors.
Mm.
There's so much labeling behaviors where, like, oh, this person's defensive or this person's resistant to change. And it's like, well, there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. Maybe we should be talking about that.
I love that. Yeah, and I think um, you know, I think that labeling, I agree with you as a person that in the family therapy and therapy world we use that as like non-pathologizing. So marriage and family therapists actually don't like to diagnose. We like to look at the system. So it's kind of a similar
Mhm.
approach, and what you do in corporate is you look at not only the people involved but the system and how they work together in that to build a better culture, to build more connection within an organization.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. I just got an email the other day and it was for HR professionals, a seminar to come, and it was titled How to Handle Toxic Employees and Employees with Attitude Problems.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is like the HR community and the leadership community. We're talking about how to handle employees with attitude problems. Like that right
Yeah.
there tells me we're labeling behaviors. And when you approach it in that way and say this employee has an attitude problem, then like you're
Mm,
already behind. You're going into those conversations with a much different lens than if you looked at it and say, this employee is maybe struggling and something's coming up for them. I don't need to know what that is. It's none of my business, but something's coming
mhm.
up for them and they're having a hard time right now. And then going in to talk to them like that, you're bringing a whole different level of energy.
Absolutely. And like I've experienced this, those of you that have listened to the podcast know I have a past in corporate too. And also thank you for sharing your story and how you got here. And I'm so sorry that you had to experience, what you had to
Thanks.
experience in the workplace. Because I unfortunately, Katie, and I think we talked about this prior too. It is I feel like everybody kind of has a story like that, and it's so disheartening to me that like so many people have unfortunate, like myself included, um, have those experiences in companies. It just seems that it's like something isn't right. Something like as the kids
Mhm.
say, my math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very common. And the more I do this work, the more I talk to people who have stories. And some stories are just horrendous, like, being sexually assaulted by a
Yeah.
boss in a parking lot. Like sometimes they're that level and and not to compare traumas,
Yes, of course, of course.
but there's just so many. Sometimes it's that, sometimes it's narcissistic bosses who are gaslighting you, sometimes it's just overwork and overcapacity, and we bring that energy, and our
Mhm.
relationship work makes us with work makes us work harder and put in
Yeah,
more
yeah,
time than really we should. Like,
exactly. That's a coping mechanism for sure.
yes, yeah, there's a whole spectrum there of what's going on, but it's just super common and we don't talk about it a lot because there can be a stigma. Like if you're someone who speaks up and you push
Hmm.
back on the system, then is that going to harm your career in some way? So we just don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah, no, and that's something that too I'm super interested in. I know, given your background and you are very well versed in HR too, because I will be honest with you, when I was in corporate, like I knew like HR is there to protect the company. I think a lot of people that work in corporate, I work with a lot of clients as well that work in corporate, and they're like, no, but Danielle, like, there's HR. And where do I guess, like, what would your advice be to people that, like, are in kind of those situations where, like, they don't want to be something's going on and it's definitely work related, but they don't want to feel like they're that, I'll use the term maybe like whistleblower or like, they're kind of causing, rifts or they're, speaking up. Like, what would you tell them, or where to go? Because I've been there myself, and in my personal experience, I feel like when you find the right mentors, they're helpful. But, I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, my advice for everybody is be strategic about your career
Yes.
and not emotional. And
Mm.
I didn't learn that until a couple years ago, and I'm 45. So I spent the first half of my
Yeah.
career really being emotional about work, really looking to my employer to meet a lot of my needs, meet my emotional needs. I wanted them to see me, I wanted them to
Hmm.
hear me, I wanted them to see my heart. Like I really needed
Yeah.
them to see me in a certain way, and I don't do that anymore. So I've taken the power back by seeing work
Mm.
as a contract. So let's even talk about that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what even is work? Like when
Yep.
I think about work, so you agree to do, the employee agrees to do like a series of tasks
Hmm.
that are hopefully put down on a piece of paper somewhere called a job description.
Yes.
Not everybody even has
Let's hope
that.
so.
But that's the goal of like there's going to be a piece of paper with words on it that tell you what you're signing up for and what you are expected to do. And then in exchange for that, your employer agrees to give you money for that.
Yes,
And like that's it.
you're right. And basic, yeah, if you break it down just to basic simpleness, that's it. Yeah.
Like let's think about it like that. And that's why I branded my business as work is not family. Because
Mm.
this whole narrative of like we're a family here, no, we're not. This is an agreement and this is a contract. And so if you're going through a hard time, that's kind of like the first thing that you can do is start looking at your job
Mm.
as a contract.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
you wouldn't go to a contract and be like, I'm just not feeling valued by you, contract.
Yeah, right? Like, you're not being compassionate towards me. Like, you're not seeing
Yes,
me.
I
Yeah.
don't get to be my authentic self around you, contract. Like you would
Yeah.
never do that, and yet we do it to our employer in the system all the time. And like it's just not their job.
No, you're wholeheartedly, correct there. And actually, I was talking to an ex-colleague last night, and she works as at a company, the healthcare company, and she does what does she do? Oh, forgive me. It's like their legal review process where,
Mhm.
like, because in healthcare you can't say certain things, you can't make certain claims. So like she's not a lawyer, but she kind of goes through, she's in marketing, but she works through with the lawyers at the company to kind of go through the review process to make sure all the marketing materials are, legal and they
Mhm.
can say them. And she actually told me like last night, she was like, Danielle, she's like, I didn't come to work to make friends. And I'm like, that is valid. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like some people are very lucky that they, do form closer relationships at work, but she's like, I'm just at work to do my job. And she's like, and get a paycheck. And I didn't come here to make friends. And I'm like, good for you.
Yeah, how freeing is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How
I think
freeing is
though, and
that?
I will say my struggle in corporate, and I think that's why entrepreneurship was such an attractive like route for me, is because I think, and I feel like you, any entrepreneur that I know, like you are, I know it's very, and my dad used to tell me this in corporate, like, Danielle, put your feelings to the side, but when you care so deeply about what you do, it's very hard to not make it emotional. Like I totally understand the perspective. You're like with the job, like yes, you're not going to be like, "Oh, contract," but when you're working with people, it's, and you're passionate about what you do and you care about something, it is very, very difficult. I just want to normalize that for everybody listening. Like it is very difficult to be like, "Oh yeah, like put your emotions to the side," because when you genuinely care or you're working with people, obviously businesses are built with people, and then that's who runs them, and I think that's where too, I love your perspective on this. I think that's where it gets a little gray, or you know what I mean, because it yes, all this, in the corporate world, it's so easy to say like, yes, it's corporate, but then it's like there's a person behind that, you know what I mean? There's like your job is such a big part of your life, your work is
Hmm.
such a big part of your life.
Yeah. And so some of the work that I do with people is really talking about what are the behaviors that drive you
Mm-hmm.
and what's your relationship with work? Because why do these two things have to be mutually exclusive?
Yeah.
We can care about our work and we can be invested in our work and we can want to take care of our customers and our clients, and it can still be a contract.
True.
And
Yes, you're
we can
right. Yeah.
still set boundaries around that.
Yes.
So that's part of the work that I do, because what I find with people is like, yes, it's about the work, but it's really about their identity or
Mm-hmm.
their value or what they've been taught about work, what it means to be a good employee and where
Yeah.
that comes from, and like all that stuff that goes on internally inside of us. That a lot of time is what's driving it. And what a lot of people do is go, it's just because I care so much.
Mm.
And so that's some of the work is like, okay, well, can you have it both ways?
Mm-hmm.
And who are you abandoning here?
Yes.
Because a
That's a
lot of
great
times
question.
we're abandoning ourselves because we care so much about our clients. And I'm not sure that's the healthiest way to do it.
That's a great point, because I think that's a great point in not just corporate, but any relationship you have with anything, like your job, a spouse, a friend. Like when you get to that point of self-abandonment or like crossing that level, like that's when you have to check in with yourself and be like, all right, like Danielle, all right, Katie, like am I losing myself in this? Because it
Yeah.
once you start in anything losing yourself, that's in my opinion, like that's when you have to start like pulling back and really reevaluate the situation.
Yeah, what's the cost of this? And I talk to
Hmm.
professionals all the time who are constantly in a sympathetic nervous state. They are constantly
Yeah.
filled with energy. They're constantly dysregulated all day. And then they go home and they go into a shutdown mode because they're so exhausted. They don't have time for their families. They just want to order a pizza and turn on Netflix and go to TikTok
And
and
yep.
try to get some dopamine hits. And then they do it again the next day. And some people are living decades like this. And
Oh,
so if
yep.
you're telling me that you're doing that because you care so much, then like we got to break that down a little bit. We got to look at this and really explore what's going on there.
Yep. And I will tell you too, working with my clients as well, like that what you just described, survival mode. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Autopilot. Like, yes, and like I trust me, I have been there. And
Hmm.
like I was there for like probably about 2 years of my life, and the results, not so pretty. So your body, and I always say this, your body will tell you, like, as much as your mind logically you want your heart, your body literally will be like, nope, this isn't working for me anymore. That's what it did for me. It was like, nope, we're not going to let you sleep. We're going to give you panic attacks. We're going to force you into a depressive episode because something ain't working here. And that's when I really had to sit myself down and be like, all right, like, as you said, like, I clearly was abandoning myself. And
Yeah.
similar to what you're saying, like, this is how I can tell I've grown, thankfully. That like I used to be one of those people like I can't, but I just care so much. I care so much. I care so much. And it's just like, but you're right. At what cost?
Yeah. How long was your body sending you signals before you got to the point where you're like, okay, something's got to
Oh,
change?
months, months. Like I
Yeah.
would say like probably 3 or 4 months. Like, but I would say like I was quote unquote like in survival mode. Like I wasn't as like, just like I was still enjoying my life, but it got to the it didn't I didn't wake up every day like I wake up now. Just a different feeling. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Not to say I woke up like unhappy, or it was less, I would just say it was less fulfilling. It wasn't unfulfilling, it was just less fulfilling. Because it just felt very routine, very also too, like I was just stuck in an environment that um didn't serve me. Because I think when you're truly aligned, even at a company, like I've actually, to give I don't want to be so negative, to give corporate America a little shout out, a little praise. I've been at companies where they do have good cultures and you do form good teams. And I will say too, I know you work with a lot of leaders, and leaders having good leadership, oh my God, makes all the difference in my
Oh,
opinion. You know.
100%. And look, I agree with you. Leadership is hard.
Oh, it's not easy, yeah.
Running a business is hard. And because I work in HR, I see it from both sides, and lots of employees are nightmares. Like
Yeah.
it, it's not like it's all one-sided here.
No, no, yeah. It's a relationship. It's a two-way street. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And that's even when I think about myself, I've always considered myself a good employee, but I was asking things of my employer that were not fair. I was
Mm.
expecting them to meet my needs and like make me feel whole as a person,
And
which
that's,
is
yeah, that's not
not
their
what
job.
they agreed to do. They agreed to give me money for doing the activities on my job description. They never agreed to give me more than that. And that's the part that it's like, I like to have these types of conversations because as employees, we can put a lot on our employers and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
expect a lot in return that they never agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I was telling you, I work with a lot of people after they get laid off. And this year in 2025, it's a very difficult job market out there. Lots of people have gotten laid off. And I have spoken to people 30, 40 years with a company and they
Wow.
get laid off.
Mm.
And it's very hard to deal with. I mean, talk
Yeah.
about having your identity tested. It's very difficult. And some people get so mad and I'm like, but they never promised they were never going to let you go. Like you worked there. That was your choice. They gave you money for your job and you decided to stay there for a number of reasons. It could be positive reasons about the company. It could be because you don't like change. It could be because you never developed other skill sets that allowed you to do something else. There's a lot of reasons that you decided to stay there, but that was your choice.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have free will. You know?
And it's not a family, it's a business.
Hmm.
And that's what happens. Employers will take advantage of that mindset and they will lean on that business and use it to get people to stay. But the business is always going to come first. There's no employees without a business, there's no business without
Yeah,
employees.
it's
But
two-way street. Yeah.
the business is going to take care of itself first. And if that means letting people go, they're going to let people go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it too. But I love that you kind of brought up the like the longevity, because unfortunately I just recently had a friend that got laid off from his job. I think he worked there for like 20 years. And I love that you brought up the, because I know too, I were being now I'm putting my therapist hat on. I know. And I love that you brought up identity, because I people that actually like not even laid off, people that retire, I
Mhm.
find when you're in that life change, or when you're in a life change with a new job, or a job change, a career change, we tie our careers. I think it maybe this is an American or Western cultural value. We tie so much of our identity to what we do.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that I know what personally I do. I mean, for like my purpose and my calling is so, like I tell people, like it is like when I look at my core self and parts of myself, I'm like, me helping people is really it's part of my identity. I do it in my personal life, I do it in my professional life. Like it is pretty baked in. So that's why I think it is so difficult, when these people do get laid off or you do retire, because it's like, well, who am I now? Like, because it's such a big part of you, or even tied to your core identity.
Yeah, and I like to kind of step back on that too and say, your strengths, your
Yes.
skills, your purpose, what gives you energy, what lights you up, that is who you are. That
Yes.
is separate from the company that you work for.
Oh, 100%.
So sometimes that's what we do is our identity gets tied in with the actual company that we work for,
Mm.
which is really different than like who we are as a person and what we like to do and what fills our cup. Because really, we could do that in lots of different places. And I just like, if I could go back to the start of my career, I really just wish that I could have been more strategic and like, this is going to be a weird way to say it, but like,
No, it's okay.
just take my career by the balls.
I love it. I love it. Be the
Like,
driver. Be the driver. Be in the
yes.
driver's seat.
Like
Yeah.
take ownership and just like grab it by the balls and like decide what you want to do and make it about you and your skills and your strengths and not make it so much about one specific employer because they're not your family, they're a contract
Mhm.
and either party can end the contract at any
At any
time.
time. Yep. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I love that. I think when you, and also to what you just did, and like, going back to my therapeutic coaching and mindset, and it's all, you like reframed something because if you think of your job as a contract, you're right. Like, kind of the pressure comes off a little bit. It's less of like, you're right. It's like when you 'cause something about something being contractual is very like, yeah, like like it's a transaction.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's like any business transaction, any contract. And you brought up something too prior that I wanted to bring up, which I actually just saw a post on Instagram with. I had a podcast recently with these two women, Jen and Jillian, and they wrote a book about boundaries. And they had a quote on there, and forgive me, I'm gonna forget the exact quote, but it was something like, don't live by your expectations, like live in accordance of your boundaries. And I think that, especially in the workforce and in your career, is so important because, as you said, like, you can't expect your employer to make you whole. Like, that is your job as a person to do your inner work or whatever works for you to make yourself whole. And if you're going to search for external validation to make yourself whole your whole life, well, I hate to break it to you people, but you're never going to find it because you have to look in.
Yeah, you got to figure out what's coming up for you. And so that's the work that I do with people too. It's like, okay, let's start with like redefining what work is and how we even look at it.
Yes,
You can
yes.
separate it from that perspective. If then you can put nervous system regulation on top of that,
Oh yeah.
this is important for employees, but also for leaders so that we understand the different states of our nervous system and how to tell when like we're being triggered and something's
Yeah.
coming up for us and that it's actually something from the past and not what's going on in the present moment. Because there's always things at work that are annoying.
Triggering.
Like even now I'm regulated most of the time. I'm still annoyed with things. Like I still get
Oh, absolutely.
frustrated.
You're human.
Yes, that's never going to go away. That exists at work in every different employer. That is different than being emotionally activated and triggered.
Absolutely. And I will say that, to your point, I say this to everybody. And the real, I've like been, thinking lately on my growth journey. I always thought the real flex in life, which I guess maybe they're kind of similar, was mental flexibility. So being able to like pivot and being very like mentally flexible. I've changed that, and I mean, I know I'm allowed to change that statement. It's not like it's set in stone, but I've now changed that. I think the real flex in life is having a regulated nervous system.
Hmm.
Because it's like, as you said, it's like you're not. It's not just. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get activated, right? But it does mean that I'm coming from like a calm, connected core place of myself. And when you are regulated, you're able to make just better decisions. You're able to respond and not react. I think that's a big, and also too, you brought up leadership, and I think you would agree here that when you're a leader, and you have people that that look up to you, or you have to manage, or like, and you're sending out a certain energy, your team can sense that. Your
Hmm.
team, like, if you're triggered and you have maybe an anxious or fearful energy, that no not only is in your body, but then that translates to the people you work with as well.
Yeah, and this is how I use nervous system education for trauma informed leadership as well, is helping leaders understand what's going on within their body. Because I have
Yes.
a lot of conversations about like conflict management or how to have difficult conversations. Leaders don't know how to do it. Like
Mm.
they're freaking out about it, which is
Hmm.
why they avoid it or why they like don't do a good job. And it's because they're having an emotional response to it because
Yeah.
something's coming up for them. But nobody talks about it. We don't really know this. Trauma can kind of be like a taboo word even in corporate America because it tends to like
More
it
like
leans on the
mental,
medical
yeah,
side. And
mental health. Yeah.
same thing with using the word narcissist. Like if that's a medical diagnosis, then like there's no place for it in the workplace. So
Mm.
there's these like lines we kind of have to like be careful around when it comes to the medical stuff at work. Um, so it's just always interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we were talking when we first met too. And I think I would love to see more of a blend. And I think we're seeing it. I think like in our lifetime, but like we'll see in the next, like I hope to live a little bit longer, you know that we're gonna see more of a blend, because I see the younger generations, like the people that are coming up in the workforce now, with a very different mindset than, let's say, like the boomers, who, the people, as you said, stay at a company for 30 years. I feel like they are I mean, as much as people can criticize them, because I'm not saying they're no generation is perfect, but the one thing I do think they hold true is that they are very the advocate for their mental health. I think they look at the workforce differently than, I think they do look at it like a contract. I think they're more willing to be a little more open-minded, or, and I have a feeling we're just gonna, and I actually read an article, or a headline of an article, excuse me, I won't misspeak.
Yeah.
I won't, I'm holding myself accountable here.
Yeah.
I read a headline that, like there are more entrepreneurs now than ever. And that to me is a statement of, like, not just like, I love that. I love hearing that, but also too, it's like people are, as you said, like taking their careers by the balls. They're, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? They're doing it. Like people are doing it. Like they're just like, yeah, like I don't need a company to do this. I'm gonna go out and do it myself. And like similar to you, it took me 14 years to figure that
Mm-hmm.
out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm. I love these younger generations coming into the workforce. They are changing the rules, like, and they're
Hmm.
changing the world as they do it. And yeah, I hear boomers. Yeah, just yesterday had a boomer say to me like, "Oh, this younger generation, there's no accountability," and I was just like, dude, like
Yeah.
no, they see what we didn't see. They're not
Yep.
falling for the
Yep.
same thing that we fell for, and they're not dealing with this bullshit, and they're empowered to handle things differently, and they're rewriting the rules, and like bravo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's like, as much as I said, every generation, and I appreciate, I do also appreciate like the boomer, like, I think I've seen these like reels on Instagram, and it's like it's like the, or I guess baby boomers, like going to work, and they're all like suited up, and they're like ready to
Mhm.
go, and then it's like millennials, and they're just like kind of like in sweatpants, and they're like, like they're like just going to get their key, and then it's like Gen, is it Gen
Gen Z.
see. And they're
Mhm.
like in their bed and like with a computer, and they're like they shut it, and they're like, we're not working today. And I'm like, I don't like that perception of it, because not I like don't like generalizing generations like that. But I do think, I think that we all have something to learn from one another. And that's the, as you said, I think it's super refreshing, because I'm just somebody that like is kind of like root for the underdog kind of person. Like when you break the mold, like I love that. I will say, like, just, and not to say I don't, my dad is very well, I'll share. My dad is very like, he's a company guy. I accept that about him. He's 65. He could retire, like he's not, because he likes what he does, and I'm like, good for you. We just have different viewpoints on work. And he supports me being an entrepreneur and all this stuff, but I do, as you said, I think it's super refreshing that like the younger generations kind of see, and they're like testing the status quo a little bit.
Yeah, they've also been told a bunch of lies like we were too. And I just think that I have a 17-year-old son, so
Hmm.
he's about to
Oh, wow.
enter adulthood.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they see these conversations that people like you and I are having, like,
And they're
oh, I
like,
was
yeah,
like, why would I sign up for that? Like,
yeah,
why would I sign up for that? And is there a different way that I can do it? And should I explore that? And I'm like, hell yeah,
yeah. Go for it. Yeah. I mean,
figure it out.
that's great. Yeah, exactly. And I think too, going back to kind of the conversation you had with the boomer about like accountability, I think that shows like there's different forms of accountability, right? Like maybe their version of accountability is like working for the company for 30 years, but as you said, like circling full back to your what you said about self-abandonment. If you are, yes, I agree, like accountability, that's actually one of my core values. Be accountable, but if your accountability is detrimenting your sense of self and you're potentially abandoning yourself because of your accountability, then you have to check in.
Yeah, and I think for the boomer generation, a lot of that comes down to actual hours,
Mhm.
like in the grind. Like, how many hours are you putting in? How long are you at the office for? If you
Yeah.
stay until 8 p.m. instead of 5, then you're more accountable for the work that you do. That's kind of just their perception because that's what they grew up with. And the younger generation is not looking at it. They're looking at results. They're looking at efficiency. They're looking at the product and the outcome and not necessarily how many
How
hours
much
it took to
time?
get there.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the big challenge and shift that we're going to see in corporate America.
I love that. Yeah, because I will say, like, I mean, I struggle with this as an entrepreneur. I'm sure you do, like that, like hustle culture,
Hmm.
And I'm like, I tell myself, like, I am better when I am, and I've noticed it because I'm sure too, like, a lot, I'll share with you a lot of people. I mean, I have a background in marketing, so maybe it's a little easier for me. But like when you sign up to be an entrepreneur, you also sign up to be a content creator. And I will tell you, for all those people out there, it is not easy. Like to be creative, to be in that really like aligned place, like rest is very important. Like I can't run on empty because I can feel it in my content. Like on a day where I'm tired, like I
Mm,
can't I will say like on my tired days or my like just days I want to do stuff, I can't record podcast episodes because it's like you're creating content, you know what I mean? So it's a lot. And I think that as we get more people that are, you know, you content creators or entrepreneurs, we're gonna see that shift because you do recognize how important like slowing down is, getting a good night's sleep, not running yourself ragged. Because I actually talked to another coach the other day. We recorded a podcast episode, and she said to me that kind of she's like, I bought into that hustle culture when I started my business, and she similar thing happened to her that happened to me when I was in corporate. Like she was like, I ran myself ragged. I then, had to go into an intensive outpatient program because I was having like I think she said depression and anxiety, and I'm like, yeah, that's what unfortunately hustle culture will do to your body,
hmm.
you
Yeah, I
know?
heard on a podcast once, like, don't build something that's not sustainable. Like, what's the
Mhm.
point of that? So that's something that I try to keep in mind. And that's from not thinking about it from an entrepreneur, but I also think about it from somebody in corporate. Like we said, if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
spending all day in fight or flight, and then you're spending all night checked out and disconnected, and you're doing that week after week, year after year, is that a life that you want for yourself? You can change it without even having to leave your job. Like, you can redefine your relationship with work. You can learn to regulate your nervous system, because
Mhm.
bringing it back to boundaries, a regulated nervous system will help you implement boundaries. Because I always
Yeah.
say, you don't communicate boundaries, you implement them.
Oh, I love that. Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm writing that one. So it's so funny. I mean, I'll share with you when I use I listen to my podcast, and when I'm more like I'm promoting them, like I like to like sometimes shout out, like, I make these like little when going back to content
Content.
creation,
Yeah.
um make these little like just things with quotes. But I'm definitely gonna make a quote for you. I'll tag you in it because
Yes.
that I was like, I'm gonna write that down like that. I'm gonna tell my boundary people, like the Jan and Jillian about because I love that. That's great. You don't only create them, you implement them. I love
And
that.
that's really hard to do with a dysregulated
Oh,
nervous system.
absolutely.
And so doing the work of like what's coming up for you, what needs
Yep.
healing, what do you need to do so that you stop abandoning yourself? Like that's how you actually find out what the boundary needs to be. And I feel like we that's not something that we talk about either. And we kind of put it on people like, oh, well, you're stressed out by your work. Well, then you need to set better boundaries. And people are like, well, how am I supposed to do that?
How
I need this job. I care. I've got all of this work. I'm trying. We don't know how. We can't look at it that way. We got to go deeper. We got to go inside. We got to figure out what the younger parts of us actually need from us. And then that's how you set those boundaries, like without guilt, and you actually feel better. And then you don't even really need to leave your job. You can work there
yeah.
and you're just going to have you're going to be a different person, grounded, have boundaries, calm, confident, screw the work. Well, okay, not
Yeah.
really screw the work, but you
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
no,
mean.
no, no, yeah, like exactly. But it when you put it that in that perspective, it's like, yeah, it's like, and like, yeah, like you just approach work differently.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I always say too, like, and similar to like relationships, like that, and that's like I know this is a very like, and I hate using this metaphor because like I'm a very emotional person, especially with relationships, but you kind of have to treat your job like, as you said, like a contract, like when you invest in like the stock market, right? Like some investments do really really well, and you get really like maybe you invest in a startup and you put in a little money and they like really impress you, or sometimes you invest in a startup and like it doesn't do so well and it flops and you lose. And like some things are mutual funds and they'll always give you that return. Like some things are like the S&P 500 and they'll give you that, 15% every year. So find like a healthy balance with what you invest in, whether it be your relationships. And I always say the best investment you can make is in yourself.
Mhm.
I think what we do, I want to just, I guess, validate or normalize, or I think personally, this is also, I'm putting this out in the universe for all of us coaches. The coaching industry, I think, is just going to skyrocket in the next however many years, like I think forever, because people one need more help than ever, and two, like I like in every other area of your life, like people, like athletes have coaches, like you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I feel like I think it's like why did we ever expect ourselves to like walk through life without like some guidance or mentorship or leadership? Because, and yes, of course you have friends, family, but like sometimes having a person out there as like an objective, like that's why
Mhm.
there's therapists, like but I think the coaching industry is already seeing like such a big lift because people need help.
Yes, and executive coaching is a thing. People are
Yeah.
totally on board with that. Once you become an executive, you can
Yeah,
get a
people.
coach. But I'm like, well, what about all the other employees? Like, who's helping them? Like, everybody's
Mm.
helping the employer. The employer has all the resources, they have the legal team, they have the money, they have the power. They have all of this stuff that they can do. And then your executives are getting all of the support. Well, what about the other like 95% of your employees that aren't struggling? It's not the employer's job to do it, but there are people out there, and that's what a coach can do is like help you figure out how to take your career by the balls, be
You should
strategic.
put that on a t-shirt, Katie, and wear it. Like take your career, walk in like a conference room and just be like, take your career by the balls. Let's do it. Like
It's like my new mantra.
your
Like
new
this is what you
slogan,
need
your
to
new
do.
slogan.
Like like get a coach. I can help you do that. Like I
Yeah.
can help you do that. Like that's how you take the power back. Stop
Yes.
running your career on emotions. Stop looking to your employer
Mhm.
to meet all your expectations that came from your
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
childhood.
Like
And
you have to
like
do that. Yes.
you have to do it, and you can do it, and you don't necessarily have to quit your job. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. What we so often come to people when they say they're struggling, we're like, well,
Quit
just
your
get a
job.
new job.
Mhm.
And for me, when I was having a hard time at work, I was like, well, why should I have to? I didn't do
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
wrong.
Exactly. Yep.
It's like it's not that easy to get a new job, especially right now in 2025. So we have to stop telling people that they need to get new jobs.
Yes.
And there's a whole other world of like, okay, well, how can we just show up at work differently so that you don't have to get a new job if you don't want to, but you can still feel better and set better boundaries for yourself?
Yeah, and I think bringing up too, and then we'll wrap up after this. I could talk to you all day
I know.
about this kind of stuff. I know I could talk to all my. I feel like sometimes I mean, I'll definitely have you back. With my whenever I record a podcast with somebody, I'm like, I could talk like all day about this kind of stuff. Like, but I think we were talking about this when we first met. That, 'cause as you said, I'm with you. Like, you don't have to quit your job, but also too, like when you move places, you learn that like even yes, you might leave a toxic environment, but like they're unfortunately everywhere. So if you do choose to move your job or leave your company, unfortunately it's a system where you're going to find they're kind of built the same. So yes, leaving your job, and then what if you just end up in another environment that's exactly like the one so you're going to have to build the things that you're talking about, build resilience, regulate your nervous system, form a more solid sense of self and all those like those things in order to navigate, because most people, let's just say like majority of the people, yes, do have a job, like I mean I would hope
Mhm.
like like you need your career to sustain your life. So entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so if you're gonna navigate in that world, you're gonna just need the tools because you're gonna it's not, I always say like I got really lucky in my career. I probably didn't experience toxic work environments or narcissism in the workforce until like I was like until my episode, like my last two companies I worked for. But I was pretty
Mhm.
lucky for like the first 10 years, like had no real issues with, companies.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of different cultures out there, and no company is perfect. Like I said,
No.
there's always going to be something. There are different levels of, dysfunction versus toxic versus abusive.
Yes,
Like
yes.
there's a whole spectrum out there, but that's one of the reasons people stay too, is because they're like, well, at least I know what I'm getting here.
That's true. Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I'm supposed to go over there. What's my pay going to look like? What's my benefits?
Yep.
I'm going to lose my PTO. I know the people here. Like, there's all of these
Mhm.
reasons why people stay. And people get to decide for themselves. And what can happen is when people are struggling at work and they talk to people about it and then they get back, well, just get a new job. It's not worth it. Is that actually just creates more shame?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it can make even well-meaning friends unsafe people.
Mm.
Because when you're going through something like that, if you've truly been traumatized in the workplace, then the world, as you know, is not safe.
No, nothing is safe. Nothing
Nothing
is.
is safe.
And
And
then you're
so,
always reacting.
yes. And so, even just talking to a friend and having that friend say, with like a kind heart and like good intentions, like, just get a new job. Boom, you've just added yourself to the unsafe list. And then before we know it, we have less and less people, and it's very lonely. It's very isolating. And
Yeah.
that is a very hard time to get a job because now you're supposed to go interview
And
and
like,
put
yeah, exactly.
yourself
And be
out
your
there
best
and
self. And yeah.
show up and be confident and talk about how great you are when you're like really raw and open inside.
Vulnerable. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's what's going on with people. So all of this, like, it's just a pain point for me. Like, stop telling people to quit their jobs. And what's a different question we can ask?
I
Like,
love
how
that.
can I support you?
I absolutely love that. And this has been Katie. This one's guy. I could talk to you all day. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and thank you for being here. So, where can I know you have a website? You're on Instagram, all the socials probably, but where can people find you so they can work with you, or as you said, like learn more about your approach?
Yes, my website is workisnotfamily.com. So, a couple
Love
things
it.
on that. There's a free resource I give about how you can start tracking your nervous system and some somatic things you can do in the
Mhm.
workplace to help start regulating your nervous system. I also have a 90-day program called Fragile Like a Bomb. Take back your career, your confidence, and your power in 90 days. So,
Amazing.
if that's something you're interested in learning more about, you can book a free discovery call on my website. And then, yeah, I'm on all the socials. I'm probably the most active. I have a Facebook group if you want to search for
Cool.
Work Is Not Family. I'm probably the most active in there.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate you having you, and this is a wonderful conversation. Um,
Yes.
and as per usual, everybody, you can find the Feeling and Healing podcast on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Danielle. So
Of
fun.
course.